Hey there, thanks for joining us at the Rabbit Hole of Research, where you'll learn a few facts that you can impress your friends with at a party. So, hey, welcome back to episode 8 of Rabbit Hole of Research.
Hello.
I'm here, I'm Joe, kind of hanging out in the basement studio. We have...
Hey, it's Nick, the one that keeps us from being a scientific journal,
We have Nick keeping us...
And we have a guest today.
We do have a guest today. And unlike episode 3, where we waited like minutes into the thing, we're just going to go ahead.
There was kind of a pause. I was like, I think it's just these two guys talking to each other. And then eventually I'm like, oh, there's a third
No, there
guy.
wasn't. There was really someone there. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Why, hello.
What's up, Nick? So my name's Evan Lines. I'm an occupational therapist by trade. I'm also an adjunct instructor for an advanced anatomy course. So I am certainly qualified. I'm the most qualified person to talk about our topic today.
Yeah, what is our topic today,
To
Joe?
be honest, what is our topic?
We are talking about teleportation.
Perfect.
I didn't do any
teleportation. That's it.
Into
Well,
what context?
Do you do research? I mean, I don't know. So I want to start this one off a little bit differently and just to ground myself, because talking about teleportation, I'm assuming we'll get to quantum pretty fast, like and get there and kind of talk about it. Nick's making a face because he didn't do any research probably, but so I am a biologist by training, and Evan just said he's probably a biologist also by training. Unless are you a physicist? So you got the
No,
professor, doctor.
physics.
I'm not, which is funny. He calls me professor and doctor.
Yeah. So
What's my nickname?
Professor Doctor.
Professor Doctor.
so that's kind of like so I just want to start there, and then we'll probably, like most episodes, we'll probably revisit this and try to get a physicist with us and really correct us. Or if you're a physicist out there listening, go ahead, write us in and let us know what we got right or wrong. But I just kind of wanted to start with the grounding, like kind of just talk about physics, kind of get that out the way, a little lecture at the beginning.
I'm going to hold you off there. What are you drinking today, Joe?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, great question.
Yeah, I'm ready to just jump right into
You're
lecturing.
Slow down.
It's like, let's start lecturing. So today I have,
Professor.
I have Zombie of Dankness by the Beer Zombies Brewing Company. Nick?
I'm drinking Brains by Dirk.
Yeah, these beers, we should have had a couple episodes ago for the infection/zombie chat, but we'll get back there.
Did you guys do that one already?
We did.
Oh,
It's okay. We'll end up revisiting it. We missed a lot.
We
I'm
missed
excited for
it.
that.
It was just a beer long. So that's the other thing for just letting Evan know here, and everyone else knows. We usually try to keep the episodes around a beer drink or so. Like we don't pause and get another drink. Evan, what are you drinking?
Yeah, what you sipping on?
I switched it up. Not a huge beer guy, but I'm doing a whiskey from Journeyman's in Michigan. So
He's going straight on.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, this is it. Teleportation. We're stepping it up a
I'm
little.
teleporting somewhere.
He's
is-
bringing
that is
some
for sure.
class to this.
This is
I did
it.
wear a jacket for a reason.
He really
because
did.
I know,
taught,
yeah.
I taught
No,
today,
Evan's
and
got
I
a-
was like, well, I'm just going to put this back on to look very
Got
professional.
a nice
for this.
jacket. He thought we had video, but that's gonna be a future episode. We'll
even
start
combed my hair for
doing
this.
video. Yeah.
I'm so
no. Right
embarrassed.
now we're all we just let it hang back here.
Nick has throw up on his shirt.
Hey.
There it is. Throw up.
It's not
Yeah.
throw up. It's looks like pizza sauce.
Pizza sauce.
Pizza sauce throw up.
All right, so kind of dig in a little bit, and we talked about physics, and so one of the things is kind of the idea of classic physics. I'm gonna keep this super simple because, as I said already, I'm a biologist, not a physicist, so do a little bit of learning and digging back into like some of my physics classes and things like that. But a lot of this will be in the show notes. You know how we roll here.
Footnotes.
So we'll have their
Footnotes.
show notes. We're not writing book reports. And so we'll have it. But start out with kind of the idea of classic physics and what we think of physics kind of in the macro world. We think of this as a physical system. The definition here, physical system that's described when it satisfies conditions such as the laws of classical physics are approximately valid. So that's kind of Newtonian physics. We think of motion, we think of things moving, that all works. The problem comes in is when you start thinking about things at a smaller dimension. So atoms, electrons, photons, which are light. And then that's where classic physics, Newtonian physics, doesn't really explain phenomenon that happens. And essentially, this came pretty early in the early 1900s with the photoelectric effect. It's actually the thing which most people probably don't realize is that's what Albert Einstein won a Nobel Prize for. That's his theories
like
on
E equals MC squared. I know that.
Well, no, it's for the photoelectric effect.
Damn it. I was really hoping you were like, yeah, that's the right one.
And so, essentially, what that is, it's about when light waves hit metal, electrons or photoelectrons escape. You have this effect. And so normal physics would suggest that to create these photoelectrons should only escape when the brightness of the light builds up and you exceed a sufficient limit. But in reality, it was actually the color of light. So the frequency, which equals a certain amount of energy, that determined if electrons escaped. And so Albert Einstein then proposed that a beam of light is not only a wave for propagating through space, but also a swarm of discrete energy packets or particles known as photons, which that term wasn't coined until 1926 by Gilbert and Lewis. And so we have this kind of physics there, quantum physics, that kind of goes in. And this leads now to quantum mechanics that describes, kind of the fundamental theories in physics, that describes the behavior of nature at and below the scale of atoms. And there's some really kind of cool things and some terms we might touch on, something like superposition. This is kind of most famously Schrodinger's cat. Is it dead or alive? So kind of this idea that these electrons, these subatomic particles can exist in many different states until they're actually observed. The other thing we'll probably touch on is entanglement, is that the spin state or the characteristics of one of these atoms or subatomic particles, it can be entangled or tethered to another particle through distance. It doesn't matter. And so if you know the state of one, then you kind of understand the state of the other. And so you could have one particle here on Earth, you could have another one in the Andromeda Galaxy. And if they're entangled, then if you know one of them, then you know what the spin is or the characteristics of the other is. And Einstein, he called it, he said, not entanglement, he said it was spooky action at a distance. So
Ghost.
Yeah.
Sounds like a ghost story.
Spooky action at a distance.
This is about teleportation.
I think I heard some teleportation words in there.
Yeah.
No teleportation works. No. Yeah. Yeah. No. And so we could start. I can keep going on. This is fascinating. We can get into teleportation and quantum teleportation and what that means, or what But we're also going to touch into tether this back maybe to get everyone else in, Nick and Evan in, to kind of fantasy and fiction. The earliest examples of teleportation, because teleportation really is a thing of science fiction, and we'll probably dig into that. I see Evan, he's got his binder, he's ready to go. But the earliest recorded story that had quote unquote matter transmitter was Edward Page Mitchell's story, The Man Without a Body, in 1877. And that one is not to be confused with the 1956 B sci-fi film. Okay, so totally different stories. And then in 1897, there was a novel, To Venus in 5 Seconds by Fred T. Jane. And that one, the protagonist is transported through strange machinery from a gazebo on Earth to the planet Venus, hence the title. 5 Seconds to Venus. So those are kind of really early on, even before quantum physics was thought of, understood, or the beginnings of understanding it, because people are still learning things about quantum physics and quantum mechanics. Did I lose you guys? Are you guys there?
There's a story that I came across, and I think the name is Gil Perez, and it's like a folklore story. It's a Mexican folklore story that is based out of the Philippines from the late 1500s. So it goes, so at that time the Philippines was under Spanish, like they basically had established whatever colony that was set up, and I think it was in Manila, the Philippines, and there was a guard. So there was a guard who was working outside a palace, and at some point he gets tired, or it's really hot that day. He lays down next to a tree, closes his eyes, kind of does that, when you open your eyes and you're like, oh, kind of fell asleep there, and looks around and realizes he's not where he fell asleep anymore. And he starts asking people like, hey, where am I? People like, New Spain. which is Mexico City at the time.
Right.
So this story is really cool because he immediately is going around. He's asking everyone like frantically, like, where am I? What's going on? Nobody knows what's going on. They just think he's like guy in the street.
He's drunk.
He's
Yeah,
clearly.
that's right, yeah.
He's had too much
That's
whiskey
right, whatever
from,
they-
from
well-
Journeyman.
Yeah. Probably tequila. I mean, it was Mexico, right? Probably some
But he's,
corn
he's in the
liquor.
Philippines.
Oh, is it the Philippines?
And that's
Okay,
where,
right.
So he's, at this point, he's had so much tequila in the Philippines that he thinks
that's
he's in
right.
Mexico.
He's in Mexico.
So guards, the police force there basically sees this guy in this uniform. They think he's a deserter. They think he's like abandoned his post elsewhere, gets arrested, at which point he's locked up. He starts saying like, oh, I was in the Philippines and then I fell asleep and I woke up and now I'm here. And they're like, okay, Satan is involved, obviously.
Obviously.
Here it is, yes.
So
we
this
had to
guy's
get back to
deserted. He's
Lucifer
deserted.
again.
Always playing those damn tricks.
Exactly. So he's deserted wherever his post is, and now he's claiming all these like made up, like he's just ended up here. Right. The word
Right.
teleportation doesn't exist in the 1500s.
Right.
But one key detail about the story is that the entire time he's like, when I was in the Philippines, whoever was the ruler there had just been assassinated like days before. So nobody in Mexico knows this because it's late 1500s. News hasn't spread there.
No Twitter or X or whatever they call
X,
it.
exactly.
Yep.
So I think a few weeks, maybe months go by. Eventually word gets there. Someone's like, hey, wasn't that guy arrested for when he said this like weeks ago? So at this
Right.
point, they're like,
Yeah.
they go and
Yeah.
they interrogate him. And he's like, yeah, like I was in the Philippines, now I'm here. He's still confused about it. So eventually they
So how long does it take to get from the Philippines to Mexico? Like,
I think
could he have been the assassin then? Like,
I think it was 6 weeks before news got to Mexico City that
Yeah.
whoever was assassinated and that he was now, I guess the son took over, but there was like, it was like all up in the air for a while. So that's why it took like prolonged the news from getting there.
But
Dad-
he wasn't the assassin. I think that's the next
he was
question.
not. He was
didn't
not
travel.
the assassin.
I
He did
mean,
not. Right. Did the
if he
time
had
work
all
out?
this information.
Where's
and he's in-
Matlock at?
He did have a lot, yes. So that's the early
yeah.
story I came across.
Yeah, yeah.
It that popped up a couple times. Actually, it does have a Wikipedia page. Not that
Right. No, that's good.
it happened for sure.
We'll put it-
Oh,
because
yeah,
it does say
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
folklore,
Right,
an old
right,
like
right.
story. But
Almost
I'm like,
like,
oh, that's an interesting story.
Teleportation definition, because we've touched on it a few times, and it's kind of in fiction, it's the fictional transfer of matter or energy from one point to another without transversing the physical space between them, and that's kind of the
I think
standard.
Star Trek did a great job at really bringing that up.
Star Trek, The Fly.
Is
you
that
know,
when it was first coined, teleportation?
I don't think
Star
that
Trek?
was.
That's a good question.
That
Joe?
I couldn't come across.
I didn't find
come across
anything
that.
about that. You're
I
right.
feel like
Fiction
they really
is the
brought a good science to it, though.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But teleportation, I did not find when that was that term was coined. And there's quantum teleportation, which is different than the fictional because the fictional teleportation really there's not a lot of science.
Whoa! I thought that's what we were here for.
Either way, I think it's extremely
I was bringing
dangerous.
it to what you can do, and that's quantum teleportation,
Mm-hmm.
and you're actually transmitting information. So you're transmitting the state of these subatomic particles somewhere else, and that's been done. I mean, so there's been several experiments now where they've sent this information there, and then you kind of then get into the time travel aspect of teleportation, and so you can't have the time travel. It's always forward time travel because you can't send the information or the matter faster than light. So that means that by the time it gets there, you have gone into the future from where you left. So it's kind of forward time travel is always kind of
All
there.
right, wait, hold up. That's just like saying if you go in the car and I drive to Chicago, man, I time traveled. You didn't really time travel. You just really
Technically, it's the same time zone, so no.
Yeah.
So if you drove to Indy,
All right,
then
I'm
you
sorry.
time traveled because it's a different time zone.
You technically, you got to.
It's just being
if the
slow.
time travel, right? It doesn't. I guess time travel, we think of it in a way that it's near instantaneous. But really, if you go, you're technically time traveling, right? You went from one point to another through some matter of time.
and then you can't
It's-
go backwards.
It's not
So it's
fun time travel. Or maybe it is. You get there, but yeah, no. But that's kind of it is technically time travel, right? When you look, it takes 8 minutes for light from the sun to get to Earth. So that means that the light you're looking at is 8 minutes old.
that's just travel.
But it's once again you're looking at an 8 minute old thing, right? So that's kind of like this. It's the whole idea of the last perfect 8 minutes, because if the sun explodes, it'll be 8 minutes before you vaporize.
Sounds like you're just living in the past.
I mean,
Move on.
Evan texted me before he got to the shop, and he was like, "Oh, I'm leaving Jewel soon," and I'm like, "Cool." He didn't, time travel to me. He just took his sweet ass time.
It
to
wasn't
get
even
to me.
actual yet. I actually drove by you on Calumet.
He traveled through time,
That's
though.
it till now.
When you say he traveled, and there was time involved.
I mean,
The line was long.
time is irrelevant, Joe. Like that's a
Time is
whole
irrelevant. Yeah, this is teleportation.
Do you
but
want to
yeah.
go back to something you
Yeah.
said about like the like sending information
Yeah,
out? Like
go
that's
for it,
something
yeah.
that has
Yeah.
been shown, and this kind of ties in like a sci-fi piece. But apparently, I forget what organization it is. They're like just sending information like that out in space, just like shooting it out,
Just
in case.
packets of information.
Yeah,
like,
basically, yeah. It's like whatever
is
information.
that
I don't know what's
SETI,
in this.
right? Don't they do that? Looking for was it the search for intelligent
Yeah.
life? It's
I'm just kind of like sending it out, which is crazy to me.
Right. Yeah. No. It's I mean, the crazy thing is that we're giving away our position. So whoever's out there that hears us, they now know where we're at, but we don't know where they're at. So they can come. That was in.
They can't even send anything back because
that's
we don't
right.
even know if it's.
Well, they probably won't send anything back because they're not right. It's like, oh, let's give these people. It's this whoever sent this signal. Let them know where we're at, like a big beacon, right? It's kind of like capture the flag. You throw in a big light out, and then we know where you're at, but you don't know where we're at.
I guess the real question is, will they teleport here?
probably not.
They can't matter teleportation, right? So I'm going to say it's not a thing.
I think it's completely dangerous. And
Completely dangerous.
yeah,
In what context? So let's
All right,
should we
yeah.
preface
All right.
this with this discussion started because casual coffee shop argument. What's the best superpower to have? I argued teleportation.
and I told him he was completely wrong. Like,
Because you can't have teleportation. We just talked about that.
see,
Shot that down real
another
quick.
reason why.
All right, Joe. So what is the best superpower?
I said it again that I thought that's not this episode, but we'll touch on it. That episode's coming up, but I thought healing factor. I do like that as a power that you have some regenerative kind of ability, and that's not terribly far fetched. So let's go there. I'm
I
gonna
do
ground it
have a
little bit.
major downside to that, but that isn't this podcast. So
Oh,
hopefully I get
yeah.
invited back
Yeah.
for that one.
Yeah.
That's
We can save it.
yeah.
But I'm
Keep it in
gonna
my back
go
pocket.
back to the matter and information, because I thought that was in The Fly. Especially, I mean, I haven't seen the older one from the 50s, I guess, but the Jeff Goldblum Fly, where that was kind of the discussion that he was sending to do teleportation. They had to kind of figure out, it was more sending information from one pod to the other. And then the information had to be reconstructed. I think some of it, they were, the computers they were using.
I feel like this is exactly what they did in Star Trek, though.
Yeah, no, that's how it would work, right? I mean, you would dematerialize and then rematerialize, right? Because you got to destroy the source and then move the
Exactly.
information.
And then it comes to the question is, was it the same as you brought it over? Or is it just a clone now? Yeah, you can send a person in these realms.
Right.
But it still has the same memories. But is it still the same person?
Is that like the ship of Thesis, right? The idea
What? What?
Ooh, story, spooky. Here it is. Ghost story. Let's
Yes,
ghost story
ghost
time with Joe.
stories.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so it's a whole kind of story that Thesis he could live for. I mean, it was immortal, and so he had a ship, and he took the ship, and he was just traveling around in a ship. But as you travel around all these years, the ship started to fall apart, and so piece by piece, he repaired until one point the ship was now 100% replaced parts. So the thought question is the ship still the same ship, or is it a different ship? Right? And that's kind of the idea behind that story, that you go. But from the teleportation idea, if you're saying you're going to transport matter and the information go, and you've entangled all of the subatomic particles to be as they were, then it would be an exact copy and the same copy, right? Not a clone.
But completely different at the same time.
No, not different, the same.
I mean,
The
you do
same.
lose stuff. Like,
You lose
in Star
nothing.
Trek, they do say that you do lose bits of yourself.
What bit? Like what? I mean, you
What do you mean, what bit?
I don't know. What you just said it was
yeah.
like the
Like,
eyebrows.
all right.
Like they show up. Like, oh man, you had eyebrows earlier, right?
All right.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
like you listen teeth. I mean, it's like
He lost his shoe.
Yeah, it's
My shoe's in the other dimension.
So
this
in
patch
Star
of
Trek,
skin on my buttocks is missing. Can you hook me up?
there is a transporter psychosis where you have the possibility to lose your mind while doing
But why can you? It feels like that's just Handwavium, where they're making some plot device. So why can you lose bits of your mind, but you can't lose bits of anything else?
I mean, you can.
In theory, you might be losing like
I mean,
atoms just slowly over
Right. I
time,
mean,
right?
every time you do it,
Deteriorating.
it's like it's the pay to piper. Like, you know.
I mean, in one episode they did say that no margin of error, one atom out of place, and you don't come back.
Right, yeah. I mean,
Like-
that's you got to be. That was the Fly, right? Every time he went
Exactly.
through, it was like we got to get the meat right. I need to watch that movie because he kind of went on this whole thing about the meat, and then the computer. See, if he had a Pentium, it would have figured out. They would have separated the human DNA from the Fly DNA. But he had a pre-Pentium computer. I'm being funny here because it was like the computing power was a little lack that he was playing around with. But I think that was he couldn't keep it straight. And so then the computers decided to mix the information. And that's kind of what you're getting at, that if your computer, that if you have all these billions, trillions of atoms, right? So now we're talking not just cells, but the stuff that make up the cells, because the cells are still kind of in that macro level. We're talking now subatomic trillions that the computer has to track and to get correct, entangle, and then come back. So really to move matter, you're talking, just at some level, incomprehensible. It's like thinking about infinity. The human mind isn't designed for that. Or the speed of light. Just can't do it. Nick's is done. He's thinking now. He's computing.
Oh no, I have nothing going on in there.
He's computing.
It's just a box of rocks.
He's computing.
I'm going into the science fiction realm, though. It's just a whole
Right.
mess of error that going from one place to another without any kind of I think
No
in the
cost.
show. Yeah, there's something going to be.
You gotta pay
Pay the
energy,
piper,
You gotta
right?
pay the
Is that what
piper,
you just
right?
said?
You gotta pay the piper, right? What about Thanos and the stone, right? He had the space stone, and he could just squeeze his fist, and then a blue shimmery hole opens up, and he slips in. Or
there's
Doctor
different-
Strange, you had the ring that they can make the little holes in the world.
Well, and that's what's interesting
You know.
about teleportation in cinema. There's different versions of it. So there's the portal, and I'm just walking into the portal. There's the sudden I'm here, and then I'm on that side of the room
Nightcrawler.
instantaneously. Nightcrawler or Jumper.
There's Nightcrawler, right?
That movie was kind
Jumper.
of trash.
That movie is very underrated.
I
in
I didn't
my
see it.
Are you joking?
Opinion. It has a 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's at least a 30 to 40.
A 10%? 10%?
10%.
No.
10%.
Wow.
Negative 10.
We got to check that.
Negative 10, yeah, I don't know. We'll put it in the show notes. Well, maybe we won't. We'll just forget about it. It's just here. Skip ahead.
This is gonna cut out.
They definitely tried so hard to make that into a whole ordeal. But I just rewatched that one for this episode.
Me too.
So yeah,
You don't think
I
it holds
watched
up? I think it holds up.
I watched two horrible teleportation movies. I'm not even going to mention them. I don't want anyone else.
to
watch-
watch them too.
I don't
You're
want
right.
anyone
Yeah,
else
also,
to
'cause
watch
I
it.
watched
So,
the
but
newest Fantastic Four for this.
oh yeah,
There's and that's
Yeah.
the last, I think, where it's they're building a machine to help them teleport to a different dimension or a different part of the earth, and movies from Big Hero 6 do it to Fantastic Four, but normally it's they're going to a different realm.
right. Yeah, Jodie Foster's Contact. I mean, that was
Yeah.
they built that big machine to go see the alien somewhere. That was 10 seconds, but there was 10 hours of film footage. So it was this whole kind of play with teleportation. But I think we hit something. I think there are the shows and movies that try to science their way out with quantum entanglement and kind of some of the play around with the rules of the quantum world. And then you have others where it's just you know what, we're just going to wave a hand.
Jumper was a mess.
And you're just going to fall through some portal and show up somewhere else. And then you get into kind of the quantum realm. Then you get into the multiverse, where that's also because of this idea of superposition. You can have all these different, simultaneously, each position could exist. Then that gives you kind of the liberty to get into Doctor Strange, Marvel. The multiverse, and kind of that fiction that now you can kind of jump between these kind of different space-time realities.
So, Joe, I have a question for you. So let's put Nightcrawler in this position. For one, in the movies, he's always reserved about going somewhere where he can't see.
Right.
If you can go somewhere where you can't see, though, what are the chances that you will end up inside something? Because this is the discussion Evan and I were having the other day, where I stand by the idea that if you're going to transport into somewhere that you can't see, you have the option to end up inside something.
Like you've never been in this room and you don't know this table's here. And you're like, I'm going to transport in the middle of this room.
You could fall right into the table there. No, I think that's a good point. If you're talking about the subatomic world, then one can, at a lower energy maxima, go through an object. So you could actually show up and go through the table. So you would have to have some spatial understanding of where you're going or how to get there, because if you're not, that would happen. And that was in one of the X-Men movies. No, it was in Wolverine, right? Where he grabbed his spine. Sabretooth, how was the black guy? Was it Will.i.am? He was zipping around. I can't even think which character he was.
I remember that one.
And he goes and he was like,
it was
Wolverine. It was Wolverine's origin movie.
It was in Origins.
Yeah.
With Will.i.am?
I think it was.
Not with Deadpool, where he's like popping around.
No, the other one with that. That's right. They were on top of the reactor and Sabretooth and Wolverine.
Also,
wasn't that
Deadpool.
Wolverine? Wasn't that was Wolverine?
That's, what's his name?
Right.
Blanking on his name.
Because it was they went through the Wolverine
right.
origin, and then so they were hunting down. Sabretooth was getting them back to take Wolverine back to the lab, Skinner's lab. He was there, and he goes, "You're so predictable." And he grabs his spine. He goes, "Oh, you have one," because he phased out, and then he grabbed him when he phased back in. So even he knew he could see.
There we go.
And you would have it, right?
Nightcrawler's died plenty of times in the comics like this.
Right. No, because you can throw something physical in the way. So as you start to rematerialize.
And they do that in one of the Atmans, too.
Where'd that go?
In the second one with Ghost, where she's like phasing in and out.
Exactly.
Right.
And
so
you still want this power?
I know.
You just got to be smart about it.
Yes, they are.
You're going to go on someone's roof.
I mean,
they're all smart about it until they're not.
And then a bird flies through you, and then, now I got a bird in my chest.
Have you ever watched a baseball game where someone's pitching and they hit a bird?
I guess it's how fast. Yeah, that gets to the question: how much time do you need to transport? Because if you come in and you're in the table, can you not phase completely and just go back? And the other thing is the energy. Like, what amount of energy would you need to actually phase? Because like that was the Flash had this. I mean, he was could phase, but he was eating a lot of. I mean, he was consuming a lot of calories to keep that up. So if you're now you're a teleporter. You're a teleporter. Is that the term?
That's a teleporter. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
Sure.
Then you.
Are you constantly like in a caloric deficit because you're constantly teleporting? I would think it probably is similar, and that's my counter argument to if I transport into this room and there's this table, there's so much energy that's occurring in that moment that the table would follow,
but not out the way, right? You could get your foot could be in the way, right? You think at a molecular level you would displace.
The table would be moved out of the way
as you come in.
If I did it and I teleported right next to Nick would follow.
Right, I see.
Because there's so much energy basically produced at that moment.
Yeah, the gong is saying. The computer says no.
Oh man, are we gonna get a gong soon?
This is like the third episode we've talked about a gong.
Just
a baby gong.
Yeah, baby. That's exactly. You don't need a full size. We're not there. We got
triangle. Just get a triangle.
Episode 100. You'll get a full size gong. Episode whatever. We'll get a little gong. We'll have to make that happen on this nice new table. Got a new table in the basement studio. But yeah,
in Jumper, he was going through places that he has never been to before, entering them without any idea what's on the other side.
Right.
There was plenty of times where he could have ended up inside someone.
But I guess if you're going to the idea that you're entangling subatomic particles wherever you're going, then that means that if the table is there, and this gets to Evan's point, that those subatomic particles of the table would then be entangled, and so their spin would now not become table spin or table subatomic particles, but they would become Evan particles.
I'm one with the table.
Right.
So he's going to have a bunch of wood in
because he's not moving. So we gotta say he's not moving matter. He's not right. We just say that's not. You can't do that. He's moving information. So his information, he's breaking himself down through some process to information, and that information is just. He dematerializes, and then that information is transmitted to his entangled partner somewhere. And so if that's the idea, then you don't have to see where you're going. You just need to know where your entangled partners are at, right? Mm-hmm. And that would be that's kind of the other way to explain it. So you wouldn't have to see where you're going and still land relatively well.
Interesting.
That's the way I would
say something. You look at your back.
Yeah, go for it. No, I mean, does that not make sense? Sense? I think it'll be starved out. I think it'll be like, you'll die of hunger, like right there. It'll show up.
He teleports
I think it's a power you do. Right. It's just it's a one-off. You get to do it one time, and you're probably going to die when you do it. So make it count.
I don't know
about that would.
If you're teleporting on a full stomach, that's even more stuff that you have to.
That's right. Yeah. No, you're now. So
you're
I think
weighing yourself down.
When you get there, you're going to have to eat or something. I don't know. Yeah,
eat mid-flight.
But or is it no energy loss because you're entangling yourself? So really, the energy would be the breakdown of yourself, and then the rematerialization is just the atoms that exist, the subatomic particles that exist there.
So if you are all right, so say Evan decides I'm gonna go to the Eiffel Tower right now, would he end up having like where are all these materials coming from then?
The world around you.
So that means you're taking it from something else.
Right. I mean, exactly right.
So would
right,
that
that's right.
destroy other things around you then?
Well,
is someone losing a body part because he decided to move from one place to another?
If those subatomic particles are entangled, then I imagine yes that you could actually
I mean, Nick's arm.
Right. That would be the idea, that wherever you go, so whatever you entangled with, that's going to be the pull.
I teleport near you. I'm just wearing your shorts all of a sudden. It's weird.
Don't do that.
But it's not a direct mass kind of transfer also, right? So you would have to, if there's a mass.
I would think you're pulling from different sources.
Do you think you're pulling? I mean, so then
whatever's in, whatever energy is in that corner, for example.
Whatever subatomic particles materialize yourself at that point, right? Okay.
Because then also, where's the displacement of?
They didn't talk about that in Star Trek, right? Because Star Trek, you have it. If you're dematerializing on a ship and you're coming down, and we're not transporting matter, because we already said you can't do that, then you're sending information. That means you have to use the local resource to actually rematerialize.
You do have to know where you're going, though. You have to physically see it, whether it be on a screen or something. It has to be within reach.
And just to clarify, because I've never seen Star Trek.
Oh.
It's just they're using machines, right? There's no I'm going to imagine I'm teleporting
machines,
here.
Yep. It's a machine. Yep. With little glitter in a jar, and they shake it up and
snow globe. Yeah.
I wonder if it's AI.
Maybe it's AI. Maybe AI is what lands on the planet. But what happens with what if you have the Z position, right? I mean, you have a X, Y, Z,
I don't know what that
and then
means.
time. So, right, we're three-dimensional. So you have height, width, depth, and then a fourth dimension to be time. And because we're teleporting, we just said you're moving through time because we can't go instantaneously. So you have four dimensions. So not only do you need to know where you're going, but you have to actually rematerialize at the right height, right? Because if you're 10 feet off the ground, you're close, but that's no cigar, right? So not only that, you have to calculate then if you're landing on a planet, it's, you have to figure out its rotation. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, if the wind blows,
as well.
a piece of garbage blows in a way that you can't calculate.
Is it just inside you then?
Right, no, you just got a piece of garbage in you. So yeah, you do have this. So even if you know where you're going, you may still have the perils of teleportation. Like a title of a story like that, The Perils of Teleportation. Write that down.
Do you feel better about your decision now, Evan?
Yeah.
Can I go with super strength?
Super strength, yeah. Well, that's another episode.
We'll have a whole nother discussion about
I got cons with that, actually.
Yeah. But there's some cool real stuff you can do with quantum and entanglement. That's not teleportation. So I just wanted to touch on that because it's actually things that I'm sort of kind of maybe involved with.
Oh,
at like the University of Chicago. And that's kind of the quantum centers. No, it's not. It's a NSF like a NSF kind of funded center, and so kind of the whole idea is to kind of create quantum measurement and imaging systems that exceed the classical limits. So kind of sensors, in-body sensors, in-cell sensors to extract novel information. And so you can imagine that if you took advantage of this entanglement and you made nano sensors that you could put into cells or into kind of the body, then you could read out their state and what's happening at the kind of the cellular level. And so that gives you a whole new level of diagnostics and therapies. Imagine after surgery, if you're looking for infection events or if you're looking for kind of nutrient issues or things like that, you could start to dream up this kind of next generation of sensors that could go in. And that's all through entanglement and taking advantage of the quantum realm there to do that. But you hear it in security.
Thanks, Ant-Man.
That you could have if you kind of have your entangled photons and things like that. So But yeah, no, there's some really cool kind of things that folks are doing with quantum. So it's talked a lot about, and we have fun with it in science fiction and fantasy, I guess, because we've separated here. I'm sorry, people, but there is a separation between, folks trying to make it science with the gizmo or machine and then just kind of waving their hands. And I think that could be fantastical. Like Star Wars, it has some science fiction, but it also has some fantastical elements in it. It's not fantasy, but it's fantastical.
Not yet, it isn't.
Harry Potter,
Harry
teleport.
Potter, that's right. With
There you
they
Did
kind of
they?
do.
Yeah, that's how they-
the hexacross.
It's like
the
show up.
hexacross. No, what is
That's
that?
how they just show up? Is that what you...
Yeah, that's how they teleport.
It was
in Harry
the
Potter.
like the goblet of fire, and he touched it,
Oh, yeah,
and then
that's teleportation.
they teleported to see Voldemort. He was at the grave, and he was kind of somewhat
Portkey.
formed. Portkey, that's
There
it.
you
Yeah,
go.
not the hexacross. That's the other
yes.
thing in a portkey. Yeah. Yeah, and then they had the fire thing where you could throw it in the fire. You had phasing at the 9 3/4 station. Oh, the Harry Potter fans are going to yell at me because I'm all probably hacking this up a bit.
I
but,
can't believe how bad you're hacking it. I'm not even going to help you.
I
on
think
this
it's pretty
one.
good.
She's
Jump
gonna
in
watch
there.
you from afar.
I know. I see.
I like to set fires and walk away. That's how I stump
yeah,
He's
Joe up.
incriminated himself. On the
Harry,
podcast.
Harry Potter. I gotta watch the movies. I read all the books. I read the books. I watched the movies.
Should read them again. Didn't read them good
Probably
enough.
need to do it. No, probably.
All right, best teleportation in a movie. Go.
Ooh, that's a hard one. Joe, you go first.
I'm going to fly. I love Jeff Goldblum. He's awesome. He's the quintessential sci-fi superhero. All of the 90s movies of my childhood, Jurassic Park, and always starting at Invasion of Body Snatchers, which was not part of it. Was early childhood Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but still, nonetheless, he was in there. But yeah, okay.
I feel like I'd have to go with Nightcrawler. Like
Nightcrawler.
he actually does set his own rules. He knows his
Now, was
limits.
Nightcrawler a movie?
No,
The X-Men.
X-Men.
Oh, dude, okay. So you just
He's a
said
mutant.
he said what movie?
Well, I mean,
the question you
all
just
right,
went all off.
X-Men.
Yeah, which X-Men? Yeah, jeez.
The good
Point.
I'm just
movie.
gonna say the good
I
X-Men.
thought I took that as the movie
No, I-
revolved around
You said Jeff
teleportation. No, I said The Fly.
Which favorite movie? Jeff Goldblum.
I said The Fly. I said
Like
Jeff
all of them.
Goldblum's The Fly. I said The Fly.
the X-Men one with Nightcrawler, where he just sets his own limits, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's where I'm going." Because Jumper's
Nightcrawler.
definitely not it. Like,
Why do you keep talking about Jumper if you don't
because
like it?
I watched
it's like
it
there.
for this.
It's like it's like
They
in you.
tried so
It's in your
hard
head.
It's a
to make
great
it.
representation of
It
teleportation.
isn't. They really botched
It's
it.
in your head.
Yeah,
Do you have
it
any
is.
wild card of teleportation?
Wild cards?
Yeah, just one that you're just like, oh, this is teleportation, but you forget about it.
I think we named them.
You could say like the butler and Mr. Deeds. He's always just there.
All right, Mike Myers.
Mike Myers.
That's a good
no.
one.
He shows up out of nowhere.
He
He's
doesn't-
walking, and he's showing up faster than they can get.
He just knows the
places.
shortcuts.
He never. Yeah.
So you're saying he's sprinting when you're not
he's
watching?
Pretty
That's right,
tall,
yeah.
so he's
He is
got
just-
stride.
Yes.
One thing to consider.
Both of you guys are
Yes.
both taller than me. You're not
I'll
going to
get
walk
there.
somewhere faster than
I'll
I am
get there.
sprinting. Listen, I know.
All right,
I'm
we'll
not a
take
tall
this to the
man.
streets. Well, there, that's the video, the first video.
Are you too short?
Joe and Evan walking. And
But the speed in which he gets to places, he has to be. He's not sprinting off.
All
Screen.
right, let's put a pin in this one because I think the people out there deserve, and because there's a bunch of these
I think we need a
characters.
survey
There's
going.
Jason, there's Freddy. You have these characters that actually seem to move and defy.
Freddy doesn't
their
count
walking.
because that's
No,
in your
yeah.
dreams.
I mean, it accounts. I mean, who are you, the boss of
Not in your
county?
dreams.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, your
Of course he's
dreams.
teleporting. He can't teleport in your dreams. That doesn't count.
Your dreams.
Your
it
dreams,
counts?
you're all-
Michael
like-
Myers is teleporting in
But
real life.
if you're in the dream world, I mean, it's like the Matrix, then, right? If they knew they were in a dream world, then why aren't they zipping around away
yeah,
from
why
them,
don't
right?
they teleport in the
Yeah.
Matrix?
you know what? That would make sense.
That would make sense.
They could, right? That's
They should be.
They should.
Instead,
They can
they're just
fly.
flying
They can
around.
fly around. I mean,
You
you
should
should
be just teleporting
And
now.
it's a computer, right? So that means quantum computing information. I think they missed
Yeah.
they dropped the ball there. I think you're right.
Definitely.
They could have been the
zipped
greatest
around.
teleportation
But
film.
they could phase. So phasing was a thing. The ghost
It was
anomalies.
just those two.
they
But
get-
isn't there like
right,
a weird thing with
right.
them why they're phasing?
They were anomalies, or they
They're
were
like a virus,
a program,
computer virus or something.
or a rogue program.
Yeah.
They probably were quantum computing, and they were like, we don't like that. This messes up the story. Let's get rid. You guys need to go. But they had all the keys. They had the rooms. So you had and then the TV screens. That was like a multiverse.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. So that was, getting into that teleportation kind of
I
thing
feel like
there.
you
So
really
maybe
want to
they
do a
did.
teleportation episode.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Oh, not.
Aren't we doing that? We just been talking for it.
Is that what we're doing today?
How many beers have you had?
All of them.
One?
All right, Evan, you're asking. You got to answer some questions. You just can't ask.
Yeah.
That's not the way it works.
Which question am I going to answer?
Your favorite teleportation movie?
Oh, Jumper.
Jumper.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
back to
gonna go.
Jumper.
I think that's a good representation.
You're
I don't want to.
dying.
I could say the X2 or one of
Right.
the X-Men movies, but I'm not going to agree
Yeah,
with
no,
Nick.
because we
I'm
already.
anti-Nick
Yeah.
in this podcast
I'm
episode.
sorry, but it's I
And I think that's
Yeah.
a great representation of teleportation.
Was that? And I never seen Jumper.
You don't
So was
need
that
to.
was that a machine base? Was that
No,
Handwavium?
it's like superpower based, but they don't ever say,
I
and
see.
it's just like
Right,
you
right,
just like
right,
develop these
right.
powers. It's
Right.
with
Samuel L.
multiple people
Jackson's in it.
having this power as well.
Yes, and they kind of just develop it. Jamie Bell is in it, which is interesting because he was in that Fantastic Four movie where they do teleportation. You know, they're building the machine and going from one dimension to another dimension. That's a terrible movie, but
Yeah.
there's teleportation in that.
And now you're non-teleportation. but
What's your teleportation sleeper?
I don't have to think about that one. I just wanted to see what you guys were going to say.
Oh.
Yeah, you didn't
trying
have
to
anything ready. You
He
weren't
was
like-
trying
Well, I
stump
did say
us.
this. The butler in Mr. Deeds, he always just shows up. If you ever watch that
Butler
movie, he's
Mr.
always like,
Deeds.
he's just always scared. He's always startled by the butler.
This is
Like-
creepy quiet, right? That's like someone, you have that. You just sneak up. You're always there. Like, oh, we should put a bell on you or something like that, right? What else you got for teleportation? I mean, you're satisfied? We got it all worked out?
Are you satisfied with your notes?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've talked
Did
about
you
a
guys
lot.
come across any like real life teleportation events or stories or like
Besides the subatomic.
conspiracies or anything like that?
I did not know. Everything was fairly straightforward.
Nick, and
What kind of conspiracies
I
did
mean,
you come across?
I came
Evan?
across a few.
Come on,
Yeah,
what do
let's
you
hear
got?
about
Like,
it. Yeah, no,
let's-
this is...
I think one of the cool ones that kept coming up was this thing that happened. It's called the Philadelphia experiment. Did you come across this? It was in
Well, that was a movie
1943. It was a
And it
movie.
was a movie, right. Yeah,
and
yeah, that's
this
right.
is a fun Michael
Yeah,
Myers
yeah,
tie.
yeah.
John Carpenter wrote the first script for that movie, apparently.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
but then
I
it
love
went
John
through
Carpenter.
multiple drafts.
John Carpenter's the best.
Totally different than probably what he originally. It was probably more of a horror action movie. But
Probably. Yes.
have you seen it?
I have a while ago, yes, but I've seen it. Yeah.
I wonder if it holds
I don't
up.
think I did.
I don't think
Yeah.
it does. I watched
I've
the
been-
trailer. I was
yeah,
like, woof, this is
yeah.
a little
Oh, you
rough.
didn't watch it?
No, I watched the
Oh, I
trailer.
was,
think
like,
that
waiting
good
for you
enough.
to-
Have you
okay,
seen the
so
movie? Back
that's
in,
based-
I mean, I saw it back. It came out in the 80s, right?
Yeah,
Was it- right.
1984.
that's
So it's
right,
based
yeah.
off
I was like 9.
whatever happened in 1943, where the U.S. Navy was
That's
trying
right.
to do these
Yep.
experiments, and they were trying to
Yep, yep,
teleport
yep.
ships. Right. So this is,
Yep.
I think, in 1943. We have World War III going on.
Two.
Manhattan.
We were World War
experiment.
II. We were not in
Yes.
World War III, people. That
Oh,
does not
excuse me,
happen. We
sorry.
have not
He
time
time
traveled.
traveled?
That's right.
He's-
He
oh,
was
yeah,
a
time
time
travel.
traveler?
He's
I'm
like-
sorry we didn't start off with that one.
2043 is what he's. No, it is not. We're not time traveling, people. Okay.
So 1943, they're developing. So I guess this ties to like the Manhattan Project, where I guess
that's
multiple
right,
guys
yep.
were possibly associated with what they were trying to do, where they were trying to teleport. They were trying to basically move large groups of people, ships from one space to another. So they messed with the idea of teleportation, and they tried to get. They tried to teleport from Philadelphia to Virginia and then back. Apparently, there's witnesses, but the big issue, doing air quotes there, that happened was when they teleported back, there were people were embedded in the ship, and they were
That would make sense.
they were thrown off the ship, or people were just missing, or people were inside out. It's really graphic stuff.
Nice.
And then years later, the government came out and they were like, "Oh no, this didn't actually happen. The ship just moved really quickly to Virginia and back."
Yeah.
But that's one story that kept coming up that was interesting. And I guess years later, there were maybe
Maybe something
some
happened.
documents that were
Yeah.
declassified that got brought up again, and then eventually there was a draft of a movie written about it, which is just interesting. So.
No, I didn't know that was. Actually, I didn't know that was a real
But
story.
in the movie, it's funny
Yeah.
because they time travel and they teleport
Right.
to the 80s.
Right. It's a more time
So that's where
travel
those missing people
movie.
went. They just went to the 80s.
Not
movie.
Not teleport. That is teleportation we just talked about. That's the time travel aspect. But yeah, conspiracy theory. Any other fun things?
Got anything there?
Any other-
No, I
Besides, you just wanted to talk
I'm
about
tapped.
Nightcrawler. That was it.
Listen.
that was the only. Nick came in with one goal.
I had Star
Nightcrawler.
Trek written down and Jumper and Nightcrawler.
You have you're looking for the Star Trek Nightcrawler crossover.
Yeah.
The battle of the teleportation.
Teleportory.
Evan, what else was in your notes? I have to know.
I know, he's
No,
got
that
a
was
whole
it.
binder here.
That was it.
You
I
got
have
everything?
no, it's just for
Oh,
show.
okay.
It's just for
I just
You're
have
not
the
on the
serious.
video. How many times do you have to tell
No,
me
I just have
this?
those stories that I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about. I have just movies, which we've all
Yeah.
talked about, pros and cons.
So now after this discussion, will you look at teleportation movies differently? Where you go in all right, after you went down a rabbit hole, you thought about, kind of different aspects. Are you like going to go back and watch Jumper now with new eyes?
And realize how trash it was.
Maybe teleportation.
Will you watch
eyes.
Jumper and report back?
Yeah, well, I gotta watch it.
We need that in the
I'll do it.
footnotes.
No, I'll watch it. Check it out.
And what was the movie you said you recommended? That one, the documentary?
History of
The
time
History of
travel.
Time,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I have
That'll be in
that
the show
saved.
notes.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Footnotes.
That's what we go there. No footnote. It's not a book report. We're not writing book reports. No, show notes. But yeah, that's it. Let's
Cool.
teleportate.
I think we went down that hole, guys.
We did. No, that's it. So let's thank Evan for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Evan.
Sounds
Thanks
like
for
he
having me,
might
guys.
Hopefully you can come back soon.
might be a reoccurring guest. He's already got like other shows he wanted to talk about, so we might have a
Yeah, I wrote the script for the show.
third. That's right. Yeah.
Lots of me being like, what?
It's not scripted. It's all live. Live
We have
kind
a
of action.
prompt in front of us.
Yeah, the teleprompter going off. So yeah, this is Joe. You got Nick. You have Evan. Until the next rabbit hole.
Bye.